Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast where we uncover the secrets to turning your passion for quilting into a profitable side hustle.
I'm Tori from the Quilt Patch by Tori.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts. And together, we're your co-hosts on this exciting journey of creativity, entrepreneurship, and all things quilting.
We're here to help you navigate the world of quilt pattern design, course creation, digital marketing, and running an online quilt business. We've been through the ups and downs ourselves, so we know what it takes to make money from your favorite hobby.
That's right, Tori. We're going to share our experiences on how we've grown our businesses while balancing family with other paying work responsibilities. It's not always easy, but it's definitely possible. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Quilting on the Side, and we are thrilled to have as our special guest Sean, who I know as the guy who sews. Sean, welcome to the podcast, and we always like to start out. Tell us how you got started quilting and how it transitioned into a business in its current form.
Well, g'day, and thank you so much for having me on as a guest. And to start my quilting journey, I went to the State Fair of Virginia back in 2013. And at that time, the quilts were actually down on ground level where you could actually walk up close to them and see them. And I just saw all these beautiful designs, and I was like, I really, really want to give this a go. And so I mentioned it to my wife, probably, I don't know, way too many times apparently, because that Christmas she bought me a sewing machine, and I've been figuring it out ever since.
That's fantastic. So did you take any classes to get started, or are you one of the modern do-it-yourself with lots of online help?
I like to say I'm a proud graduate of YouTube University. I have not taken a single formal class yet.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
For a self-taught quilter. And I'm sure people are picking up on the accent. So tell us that story as well.
Okay, so I do live in Virginia in the US, which is on the East Coast for anyone that's watching internationally, a few hours south of Washington, D.C. But I was born and raised in Australia. So even though I've been here 22 years, I still retain much of my accent.
And I know there's a huge quilting community in Australia too, so that is definitely a bucket list trip for me. And I'd certainly be love to hear your advice for planning a trip.
Save your pennies.
Yeah.
The price of fabric in Australia is out of the world. It's not uncommon, like if you walk into a quilt shop down there, to spend 35 Australian dollars, which, depending on the exchange rate, is anywhere between 20 to 26, maybe 27 US dollars a meter, which is just a hair over a yard. A lot of the fabrics that you see in Australia are the same ones that you find here, but I would recommend saving some money and maybe buying some of the Aboriginal prints down there, because some of the stuff you can find here, but a lot of it is unique to down there. So, but yeah, if you want to walk in and find fabric for $10, $15 a meter, you're gonna be very, very sorely disappointed.
Sure. And I imagine, having been in the United States for a while before you started quilting, it wasn't as much of a problem, but the conversion between imperial and metric, does that ever crop up for you?
No, because my sister quilts a little bit too, and she's still in Australia, and they all use the imperial system. So it's like one of the only things where you don't really have to worry about the conversions. It's everything's in inches and feet and that sort of thing. Okay. There, so it makes it easier.
Yeah, it does. I know some of our European friends are always trying to estimate from metric, and there are, like you said, it's just off enough to get everybody confused.
Yeah. Well, I started my YouTube channel 2.5 years ago. I guess you could technically call it a business, but it is not generating a whole bunch of revenue. I did it more for fun, and I was seeing my we'll just start the story. My wife watches a lot of knitting podcasts where they, the ladies and the gents come on and they showcase, what they've been working on, what they completed, and that sort of thing there. And these people are actually getting stuff finished. And I was like, okay, well, maybe if I start a channel, I'll have, 4 or 5 viewers keep me accountable. And and it just kind of grew from there. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily to go in and make money per se as a business. It was more just for fun. It's just, and if it ever stops becoming fun, then we got to say goodbye too.
Yeah. And that YouTube community is really amazing. It looks like you've tapped into a great group of both the audience members and your fellow quilters kind of in the group that you're connected to. I first found you when my friend Chris O'Neill was on your holiday year-end roundup. You had 25 quilters. So tell us how those relationships developed.
I mean, Chris was actually one of the first channels on YouTube I started watching. It was her and Fallon from So Be It Quilts were the first two I watched, and I just loved watching Chris's videos. I love her, especially the lessons from an old quilt. I find them very educational. It's so fun what she finds, and yeah, I mean, she was also one of the first to reach out once I started my YouTube channel and gave me some advice, which has been so fantastic. I mean, like you said, the community's just so wonderful. We're so, everyone's so helpful where they can be. I mean, we all have, a limited number of hours in a day, but we do try and help each other out wherever we can. And yeah, I think I talk to everybody. So, yeah. I hate to imagine how many contacts I have actually in the quilting YouTube community.
Yeah, it's definitely a large pool to find. Hold on.
Oh, for sure.
Sorry, Devin. Tori, I got a message that you're not recording or you're supposed to refresh. Her internet's been flaky this week.
Okay.
No. Yeah. I think we're good. Okay, Devin, here we go. So yeah, the quilting community as a whole is generally positive, and the quilters on YouTube I've met as well. I would say ditto to your comments there. Now,
Sure, I absolutely agree with that.
now your YouTube channel, you do live every week?
Pretty much every Saturday morning, unless we have a family event. And yeah, I like to have a guest on with me every week because I find it very difficult to hold a conversation and keep a interesting live stream going by myself. It's always more fun, I think, to have a friend join you. And there are some like Chris. This seems to be the Chris O'Neill hour. Sometimes with a lot of content creators, it's the only chance I really get to sit there and talk to them for an hour and a half. And yeah, it's become quite a popular little show. When I started, there was no lives that I'm aware of at 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern. And now we have mine at 8. There's one at 10. There's a couple at 11. And so, yeah, Saturday morning and even Sunday morning now. There's plenty of lives for you to choose from, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and are you still sharing the schedule? That because I remember seeing your.
Yes. Yep, that's still. I post that in most of my video descriptions, and yeah, if you ever need it, you can always contact me as well, and I'll be happy to share that. Because that way, there's so many people.
We'll get a link to that in our show notes because it is a schedule of live YouTube quilting broadcasts. So yeah, that's fun for people. Just like you said, if we're all sewing alone in our studio, it's nice to have that noise and at least seem like we're part of a larger community.
So I was curious, how do you find guests for your lives?
I'm always scouring YouTube. They always put out recommendations. So if I see someone that looks interesting, I'll go watch some of their content. And, I like to find people that, that I find interesting, that I think would be a good match for me to talk to for an hour and a half. And I also like, select some bigger channels like Chris and so forth, but I also like finding some of the smaller channels, because when I started out, I was very lucky that I had a few big names give me shout outs and kind of gave me that kickstart to get the channel going, and I've always wanted to pay that forward as well. And I find some of the smaller channels are really fun to come on. And the viewers really enjoy it too. They come on each week to say, okay, who has Sean found this week for us? And they get introduced to so many new channels each year, which is fantastic.
And how do you get the word out about your events?
I do post it. I post the event on my YouTube channel about 3 to 4 days ahead of time, and sometimes I'll mention it in my Sunday morning podcast. But I don't announce, like, I book people sometimes weeks in advance, but I don't announce necessarily who's on the next week until that previous week. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Yeah, and we all know that life happens, so it's sometimes your plans don't follow through. And beyond just the other quilters on YouTube, you've got some collaborations with businesses going.
I do. I'm working along with Cotton Cuts and East Quilting Go.
That's awesome. How did those relationships develop? Was it just that you were a fan of the products and you got connected that way, or was it more
pretty much. I mean, with Cotton Cuts, I did my first puzzle mystery quilt, which I brought along just because I just love this colorway. I can't show the whole thing because we don't have that much room, but this was the first one I did, and I was doing there's 10 different clues. It's a block in a month for 10 months, and I was doing each month as a time lapse. I sewed each step and I just put it together, and each video is about 4 to 5 minutes long, so you're not sitting there watching for 35-40 minutes. It's just real quick, so that way if you just got a few minutes to watch something, you can. And Cotton Cuts apparently took notice of me doing that. They reached out towards the end of this and said, hey, how would you like to come on board as an ambassador? And basically what they do is they send me the full kit free of charge, and then in exchange I promote it on my social media platforms. So I just I sew some of them live, and then I do the time lapses as well.
So I was really curious, does Cotton Cuts have like specific requirements, or are they pretty flexible for how many times you share what you're creating?
They are very flexible, which is fun, because that way, as a creator, you can kind of have the freedom to do what you want. They do ask you to do it within about a week or so of them releasing each clue. So they don't want you to, sew clue 2 when clue 6 is out, for example. But other than that, they're very flexible. If you want to do it live, great. If you want to do a time lapse or a short or whatever else you want to do, as long as you're doing something each month, they're pretty flexible and happy.
Mm-hmm. And what about Art East?
That's a fairly new partnership with them. I've loved their patterns. I've been making them for a while now, and I'm going to do a very similar thing with those. The new sew along it's going to start in October, which is called 100 Acre Wood, which is based off the A.A. Milne book Winnie the Pooh. And we have to specify that because, there's another big company out there that has the same character who's still under copyright, but the book is not in most countries around the world.
Hello, side hustlers. This is Tori from the Quilting on the Side podcast. I hope that you are enjoying listening to the Quilting on the Side podcast. I wanted to interrupt real quick to share a little exciting announcement that I have coming up. I'm releasing a book entitled Workshops Unleashed, a guide for quilting and crafting instructors to create dynamic and impactful workshops. So in Workshops Unleashed, you'll unlock the secrets to designing and delivering workshops that captivate, inspire, and ignite participants' learning potential. Whether you're a seasoned educator or a brand new workshop facilitator, this book provides a comprehensive framework that combines theory, practical tips, and real life examples to help you create dynamic and impactful learning experiences. So unleash the power of workshops and transform the way you educate, motivate, and inspire others with your craft using Workshops Unleashed. You can find that in my shop at thequiltpatchbytori.com or workshopsunleashed.co. Now back to the Quilting on the Side podcast.
The same character who's still under copyright, but the book is not in most countries around the world.
Yes, we all know not to get in a battle with the big mouse. So
yes, we do not want to get in the battle of Big Mouse. I do not have that sort of money. So
right. Oh goodness. Yeah, I've loved those Art East interpretations of some of those classic stories. I've seen you over the summer working on Wizard of Oz theme.
Yes. Yep, and I brought some of those to show. This was the Wizard of Oz. So this is Dorothy and little Toto. And you can head over to the channel and see all these on different podcasts. There's a lion. There's a bunch more. And then the current one, well, it actually finished back in May, but I'm still working on it. I'm behind, and that's okay. Hang on, that's still Wizard of Oz. Oh, we'll get this right in a minute. Okay, so this is the Matt Alice in Wonderland's the most recent one. So that's the Mad Hatter from there. And I had Alice here a minute ago, and this one's all made with Tula Pink fabric. I did buy the kit for this one. This was I'd never worked with her fabrics before. And it's been a lot of fun. So, of course, when the 100 Acre Wood came out, I was like, absolutely, I'm jumping on board on this one as well.
Yep. So tell our audience how you stay organized with all of these block of the month type ongoing long-term projects.
Well, I fall behind. I think it's so easy to do, and I sometimes feel like we need to remind ourselves that it's okay not to stay caught up. They have month-to-month things, and it's great if you can stay caught up, and if you can, that's fantastic. But I also have a full-time job outside of this, so my sewing time is limited. So, but basically how I stay organized is I do have, as an example, I'm working on the winged monkey for the Wizard of Oz. I made my own little clips, well, labels. I'll get it right in a minute, with each of the letters, so that way I can keep it all organized, and I just use Wonder clips and do it that way. So that works for me. I know some people use like little Ziploc bags and so forth, but with these projects, yes, you have to have some sort of organization system. Otherwise, it's not going to end well for you.
Yeah, and storage, the plastic bin that you were showing, something like that, or project bags, I find, really helpful so that I know what to grab, where everything goes on those in-between times when you have to put it away for a while. So those are great tips.
So, Sean, you shared that you have been growing your YouTube channel. Are you interested in growing a business?
This keeps me busy enough. It really does. But I also have a book of ideas of quilt patterns that I want to write and that sort of thing there. So, yeah, the fear of running out of content, I don't think I have to worry too much about.
So have you written your own patterns?
Not officially. I'm in the process of trying to write one, but it's also a lot harder than what you might think because, putting it inside my head and cutting out the fabric and putting it together for myself is easy enough. But then being able to write it out so someone can actually read it and construct it themselves is a whole different kettle of fish. We'll get around. We'll get a pattern or two written at some point, but I'm making no promises as to when that will be.
Yeah, it was funny. Last spring I was writing a pattern and my mom was helping me sew some of the blocks, and I gave her one block that had a lot of half square triangles, and at the end she's like, "Oh, this isn't really going together as nicely as I thought. Was I supposed to trim the half square triangles?" And she's an experienced quilter. It was like I just assumed that you would do that part of the process, but even for experienced quilters, you have to specify every step.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that does slow you down. Things like you said that you would just do naturally as part of your workflow that you have to get rid of.
Yeah, and I feel having testers would be very important, and I think it's also very important to have a mix of experienced testers and very new testers or new quilters as well, because yeah, like you know, they will pick up on stuff that the more experienced ones will just gloss over because they're so they take it for granted, as first say. So I mean, again, I haven't gone that far yet, but I'm thinking when I do want to have a nice mix, so that way you kind of get an idea of a wide spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. One other topic I wanted to touch on, Sean, what has your experience been as a male quilter? Are you still like the object of curiosity in every quilt community, or has it been kind of seamless?
I am, yeah, it depends on where you go. Like if I'm if I'm known to people, it's not so much. But yeah, if you walk into a new quilt shop or something like that, then yes, it is a curiosity. And if I'm with my wife, a lot of times they assume that she's the quilter, and she's really good about saying, no, I'm the knitter and he's the quilter. But I've always had very, very positive experiences. I know there are other male quilters out there that have had not so positive experiences with different things. I mean, I think if I had to pick something that's the hardest thing is I think I have to go physically seek out help in a lot of situations, because they think a lot of people just assume that I'm there with my wife or girlfriend while they're there shopping. But if that's the worst thing that happens, I'm doing good.
Sure, sure. Do you think there are certain designs and fabrics that could be categorized as male versus female, that appeal? It seems like there could be an overabundance of like girly flower type design.
Oh yeah, many times quilters will ask advice about patterns or fabric that are geared more towards men for like gifts. And yeah, I'd also be really curious about your opinion.
I've made quilts for gentlemen in the past, and I find it's far more challenging to find fabric, especially at the big box stores like Joanne. And is anyone else left? I mean, Hancock's gone. But yeah, I mean, if you go to a specialty quilt shop, it's a lot easier. I mean, blenders are always a great option. Boutiques, I find, are a great option. But yeah, it is far more challenging to find fabrics that you would use more so for a grandson or a nephew or husband or that sort of thing there. So yeah, I do find it's far more challenging. It's a lot easier to go find florals or something that's more feminine.
That's true. I tend to use a lot of solids. Do you like using solids?
Oh, absolutely. I love me some Kona.
That's so interesting because I don't care to work with solids, so it just more evidence that there's something out there for everyone.
Oh, there is. Yeah, I mean the whole Wizard of Oz is made out of solids.
Yeah, yeah. It does give you a lot of opportunity to add that texture with the quilting stage, which is fun too. So, speaking of that last quilting step in the quilting process, do you quilt your own, or do you send off to a long armor, or how do you manage that?
I do it all myself. I like to do it from beginning to end. It would make my life a lot easier if I sent stuff out and I actually get more done. But I do like being able to do it from start to finish, and then there's also the cost aspect of it.
Sure, sure. Are you tempted? Is a long arm on your someday list?
No, not at this point. I've played with long arms at quilt shows and that sort of thing there. I don't have the room in my house for one. I don't have the budget for it. But even if I did, I don't know that I want to learn something totally new again. I'm quite happy with my domestic, and I think that's where I'm going to stay. And I prefer the smaller quilts anyway, because I can finish them quicker. and move on to the next shiny thing. So, yeah, I'll never say never, but yeah, the long arm is not something that I'm looking to buy or at any point in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the skill set of the domestic and you're happy with that, then that's terrific. So, no, that's
Oh,
fine.
there's a lot of long arm fans out there, and at the end of the day, you do you. Like
Yep.
if you like the long arm, go long arm. But yeah, it's really not practical for me, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just need more hours in the day because I
We all
love to piece, and then I get a stack of quilt tops that haven't seen the long arm. So computerization, I think, is my next step. But
So, Sean, I'd like to pivot a bit and ask you a question that many new people ask when they start out on YouTube, which is, what tech do you use?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, actually the same tech that I'm using now. I started on my phone, and I've just stayed with that. I like the flexibility of being able to record, edit on the go. Like I can be at, you know, I can like sometimes I edit my videos during my lunch hour at the office, or if I'm at the hairdresser's waiting for my wife to be done because we use the same stylist. I like the flexibility of being able to edit on the go. I'm not having to wait till I get home.
So, what do you use to edit your videos?
I use a program called Video Guru. It's available on the Android platform. I don't believe it's on Apple. So if you're using iOS, I think you're out of luck. And the beauty of that program is it's got a lot of wonderful features. Every video that you've seen of mine has been edited with that. So you can put your graphics in, your picture-in-picture, that sort of thing there. And the full program, I believe I paid $14 for, and that was a one-time thing, not a monthly subscription. So it's super affordable, and it's also transferable between phones. So like if you buy it for this phone and then it dies and you get a new phone, it will download to the new phone and you just keep on going. So wonderful price on it.
yeah, that's a great recommendation. Um, does the Video Guru allow for your guests when you go live with more than one person, or how does that work?
I don't use the Video Guru for that. This is just for the pre-records. For my lives, I use Zoom, and so I use a two-camera setup. I use my laptop as the main view, and then I use my phone close to my sewing machine because a lot of people are asking to see get a clearer view of what I was actually sewing with. So, slightly different setup for a live.
Right, right. But yeah,
What do you use to hold your phone?
I have just a basic tripod. Nothing fancy. It was on Amazon. I think I paid like $14. Everything I buy is like $14 apparently. So yeah, I mean, you just put your phone in here. Actually, I got my phone right here. You just stick it in. You put it up. Oh, hang on. Now it's misbehaving. Be nice.
Yep.
So there you go. And yeah, you just put it up near the machine and hook it up to Zoom, and away you go. So you can start off with super simple stuff. I would not rush out and buy a bunch of expensive equipment. If anything, get yourself a decent lighting system and use your phone and just see if it's for you. And if you want to upgrade later, you can. There's a lot of wonderful tools out there for folks if they want to use it, but you can stick with your phone if you want.
yeah, I really love that there is that low barrier to entry. Like you said, you can get started with the things that you already have. It's wonderful. Um, so we've touched on collaborations and the YouTube community and things. Do you see your business going anywhere else? You said you wanted to publish patterns. What else do you have on the horizon?
I'm just going to see where it leads me. What my plan was when I started is not where it ended up. I had no intention at all doing lives, but so many people asked me to do it, and now it's one of my favorite things to do. So, where will I be in a year, 5 years? We'll see in 5 years. I'd like to do more tutorials. That's something I would like to do, but again, I've got to sit down and find the time to do it. But other than that, yeah, we'll just see where the journey leads. What the viewers want. Like I sew what I want. I so basically what I like to do. But I do also listen to my audience, and if it's something I find is going to be good for us, then we'll put it on at some point.
Yeah, that's great. The big quilt shows out there, you said you got into quilting by going to a show in Virginia. Do you plan to attend any of those bigger shows, or are you pretty much tied to your local area?
I did go to QuiltCon this year, which was in Raleigh, North Carolina. They will return in 2026, so I'll go to that. And then fairly recently, we heard that the Road to California show is actually coming out to the East Coast in 2025 in Richmond, Virginia, which is about 70 minutes up the road. So, yes, I'll be definitely making a trip to Richmond next fall. And there's a couple other shows. There's one in Fredericksburg that's in usually like September, October. I'd like to actually get to. So yeah, I don't know that I'll travel super far, like for things. Like I don't know that I'll go to QuiltCon next year in Phoenix. It's just a little too far. I'd love to go to Houston someday, but that won't be this year. It may not be next year. Maybe 5 years from now. Who knows? But yeah, we'll play it by ear. But yeah, it would be nice to see some different shows to what I've seen so far, because each one is unique.
Yeah, and you are lucky on the East Coast, having so many, in a relatively smaller area.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, very, very fortunate.
Out here in the desert Southwest, we've got a long way to drive to get to other shows. So.
Yeah, no, I was ecstatic when QuiltCon came to Raleigh, because it was like it's just under 3 hours. So I got up at 6 o'clock that morning, drove down there for the day, and turned around and came home.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I was thrilled for you when I heard that they were starting Road to Virginia. So enjoy that show as well.
I will.
Well, we have had a great... Tori has another question.
Yeah, I had one more question, and that was, what is your best advice for quilters who are just starting or thinking of starting a YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Yep. If you're on the fence, do it. Again, don't go out and spend a ton of money. Use what you have. Get a ring light, get a tripod like this for the $15 or whatever it is, because that's basically all you really need. That's what I started off with, and I've done quite well. And just find your niche. Get a plan of what you want to do, what you want to talk about, and make it interesting. And then my biggest piece of advice to all content creators out there is make each video better than the last in some way. Because if you either keep working towards that, your first few videos you may not think are great. I go back and cringe when I see my first ones, but you've got to start somewhere, and it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's an ultra marathon. Just take it one step at a time, and just enjoy the journey.
Oh, that's wonderful advice. Thank you. Okay, as we mentioned, we are going to head right into our rapid fire section. And our first question is, what color do you struggle to include in your projects? What's one that just, don't choose it very often?
I was actually talking to my wife about this tonight. I love using rainbow, but one color I do struggle to use is orange.
Oh, yeah.
I struggle with orange.
I'm not surprised. That tends to fall to the bottom of the list when people say their favorites. But
So our next rapid fire question is yardage or pre-cuts?
Yardage. The only time I really use pre-cuts, and we talked about this in my short a little while ago, really the only time I use pre-cuts is with cotton cuts, because they send everything pre-cut. But other than that, yeah, I'm a yardage person, or dig into my stash.
So if you find a fabric you really love, what's the amount that you purchase?
If I have a project in mind, whatever the project calls for. If not, I usually just buy a yard, because I don't know what I'm going to use it for, and I don't want to spend a ton of money on something I might just sit there and pet for years and years.
Although we do have those fabrics that you just want to own.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fun. Along those lines, what's your favorite notion?
Jack the Ripper, my seam ripper. Anyone who's seen my channel for more than 5 minutes knows the answer to that question.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like you've got a nice wood handle turn.
Yeah, I actually have two. One was this one here was a gift from a friend of ours, and then I bought this one this year at the one of the local quilt shows because I wanted one of a stiletto on the other end.
Oh,
So
very handy. Two in
yeah,
one.
yeah. So it's definitely nice. Spend these aren't cheap. I think they're like $30 to $40 depending on where you go, but they are well worth the money.
Yes, it makes that painful experience a little more enjoyable sometimes to have
Yes.
pretty tools.
So we usually ask this rapid fire question with a business. So I'm just going to pivot it a little bit and ask you, what is the best part of running your YouTube channel?
Interacting with my viewers. I love the community. It's not what I expected to be. Like I went into this thinking like I'm going to finish some projects and I'm going to have people keep me accountable, but being able to interact and just enjoy the community that we have is definitely the best part of it.
That's terrific. How many quilts are in the room with you right now?
I know you're going to ask me this one. I got one, two. Are we counting completed quilts or quilt tops?
You get to choose.
No, well, if we say quilt tops, I've got the three puzzle mystery quilts here. I actually brought my first quilt top along with me as well, but I didn't know if you were going to ask about that.
Yeah.
This is it here. Super simple.
Nice.
And I don't know, I'd say probably about 8 to 10.
Okay. Good number there.
This is my favorite question, but who is inspiring you right now? And they don't have to be in the quilting world, they could be outside of it as well.
I'd have to say probably John over at Art East. I just love his designs. I love his patterns. If I had the time, I'd make everything that he put out there. So yeah, he's definitely a big inspiration. And I've actually had a chance not to meet him in person, but interview him a couple of times, which has been really fun.
Oh, that's fabulous to have that relationship with someone who does provide that wonderful.
Oh, absolutely.
So, where can people find you, Sean?
Okay, so my primary outlet is YouTube, so you can look me up at the Guy Who Sews. I also have a small Facebook group, and then my other social media platform, Instagram and Discord.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, continued success. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight, Sean. We really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to interacting with the viewers and just seeing what sort of reaction we get from this.
Great. Well, that was super interesting getting the perspective of a male quilter. So much fun hearing from Sean. What was your biggest takeaway, Tori?
I think my biggest takeaway was how he started. So he started and he said he was looking for accountability and started YouTube with just this idea that he wanted to keep accountable for his projects and to finish. And I loved how his plan changed as he went, not only with his own interest, but also listening to his audience. And yeah, and I love the fact also that we just had Kim on from Cotton Cuts, and then we had Sean on, who's an ambassador. So we got to see both sides of the collaboration, and I think that was really interesting. And he didn't know that we had just interviewed Kim. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, you would have heard Kim's episode, and then this week you would have heard Sean's episode. I thought that was really fun. So Andi, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I love, like you said, how he was just open to whatever came next and kind of the serendipitous, being found by Cotton Cuts because he was enjoying their products. So kind of that organic growth is so encouraging. But I really loved how his advice to everyone is just to get started. That's the hardest part, is just taking that first step. And don't waste time researching and buying all this fancy gear. So many people start sewing on their mom or their grandma's old machine. So just use what you have and figure it out as you go. I think that's really great advice for anyone starting a business.
And I love how he also got guests, just throwing that out there. That just came to mind. He just scoured YouTube, found people he thought was interesting, and reached out to them. So if that's something you're looking at doing, interviewing people, I think that's some great advice as well.
Yeah, just ask, find some people. And he did mention that he had a wide range. He cast a wide net. He went for some of the big names because he enjoyed them, but he also, it's probably good to have that kind of plus or minus whatever number you pick from your audience, and create a pool of similar audience size, just to keep things going and growing. But his attitude of giving back to some of the smaller channels, that's really generous and encouraging too, that once you've reached a certain level of success, we definitely want to help other people along. So wonderful.
I think that really speaks to the community aspect that you guys were discussing on YouTube. I'm not really on YouTube much. I have a few videos, but like hearing you guys talk about it, it makes me want to like look into it some more.
Yeah, it's fun. But, we have the same type of community building with other quilt podcasters, with other pattern designers. There's so many segments, and the more we help each other out, we had a YouTube or a Facebook group at one point called Rising Tides, because that really does work, that a rising tide lifts all boats. So keep out there, keep going. If you need help, reach out. We're happy to answer your questions. And please sign up for our newsletter at quiltingontheside.com. And that way you can stay in touch and get those questions answered for your business. What a great discussion. If you enjoyed this episode of Quilting on the Side, please leave us a review on whichever platform you're listening. It can be iTunes, Spotify, or even our YouTube channel.
And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next chat. Until then, remember to have fun in your business and do a little quilting on the side.